Discover the incredible truth, 7 hidden powers that transform kindness into life-changing impact. In the heart of Willow Creek, where every sunrise casts a golden hue over Main Street and ancient oaks whisper secrets of the townsfolk, Jake felt the weight of the world on his shoulders. A humble carpenter at 34, he faced an unexpected storm: the recent death of his father. It was not just loss that chained him but the mounting financial burdens he had to shoulder alone. In a town that valued education and accolades, Jake often felt like a ghost, invisible behind thick walls of expectations. As winter's icy breath threatened the familiar warmth of their close-knit community, shops began closing one by one. The once bustling streets echoed with the sounds of closing shutters and distant memories. Inside him, despair tightened like a noose. But Jake couldn't sit still, watching his friends struggle. It was in his nature to act. He picked up his tools and quietly fixed Jerry's broken fence, smiling through the patina of pain. He ladled steaming stew for the elderly Thompsons, their grateful smiles warming his heart, even on the coldest days. Each deed twined the threads of their community tighter, creating a tapestry of resilience. One Saturday, he organized a cleanup at the park. The laughter of kids, the rustling leaves, and the clinking of gardening tools blended into a symphony of togetherness. Yet, beneath this blossoming camaraderie lurked a sinister threat. A wealthy outsider strutted into town, clad in polished designer clothes. With little regard for history, he pitched grand plans to demolish their beloved Main Street and erect luxurious condos. No sooner did the pitch echo in the town hall than the air thickened with tension. Voices rose and fell like the rolling hills that surrounded them. Some townsfolk were enticed by the promise of profit, egged on by illusions of progress, while others, like Jake, clung desperately to the roots that held them all together. He felt torn, juggling the dual burdens of family and community. The weight of leadership coiled around him like the mist hanging over willow trees. Before he could gather his thoughts, he felt an inevitable storm brewing, both in the sky and in the hearts of Willow Creek. That stormy evening, Jake hosted a community gathering. Bolstered by urgency, he stood at the dilapidated podium, surrounded by familiar faces shadowed in uncertainty. The air crackled with electricity, hearts beat faster, breaths caught in throats. With every word, he shared not just his vision of preserving their heritage but ignited deep-seated emotions, unearthing the struggles that made them who they were. "Oh, it's just a few condos," some murmured. But Jake countered, his voice steady, "What about our laughter? What about our roots?" The room erupted. Then came the clash with the outsider, each retort like a thunderclap. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." As Jake began to feel the unity surge through the air, heartbeats synchronized like a drumbeat of courage, an unexpected event struck. In a single moment, darkness overshadowed him. Tension crackled, hope flickered. Could his humble acts of kindness really summon a lasting unity? As the storm quelled and patience hung heavy, Jake faced the dawn of new challenges: sacred friendships tested and agendas skewed. The question loomed, could he truly heal the fracture before kindness slipped entirely through his fingers? The gathering was tense, a charged atmosphere hanging thick like the impending storm outside. Jake looked out at the sea of familiar faces, each expression reflecting the turmoil within. He felt the eyes of his neighbors, filled with hope and fear, rest on him as though he were their last beacon amidst rising waves. The realization hit hard: this was not just about preserving buildings. It was about keeping the soul of Willow Creek alive. His heart raced, the connection among them palpable. Jake was not just a carpenter any longer, he was the voice of this community. "We have something special here," he began again, the tremor of urgency weaving through his voice. "These streets hold our stories, our laughter, our sorrows. They are the fabric of who we are." Each word echoed, finding its mark. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd, lighting sparks of enthusiasm. Yet, he also noticed the skeptical faces turning away, caught between loyalty to tradition and the allure of modernity. As the evening stretched on, tension became a physical sensation, stomach-churning and suffocating. The outsider smirked, laughing at their passion, trying to disarm them with suave quips. Why cling to the past? Look ahead. Think of the wealth we could bring. His words fell flat among the townsfolk like heavy stones. Helen, a schoolteacher who seemed always to have her finger on the pulse of the community, stood next to Jake. She always had a way of cutting through the noise. But what's the cost? She challenged, her voice steady, cutting through the outsider's bravado. Will we trade our joy for dollars? What happens when we lose each other? A quiet buzz followed her question, penetrating deeper into the hearts of the listeners. In that moment, something shifted in Jake. He realized this fight wasn't merely about real estate, it was about preserving their connections that had been forged between their families through generations. With passion igniting his words, he shared memories of people gathering here in the summers, children playing, elderly couples sharing stories, generations intertwining until the stars blinked out. Together we can create a different vision, he urged. Let us restore, not demolish. Let us rebuild what's broken with the love and kindness we've all shared. We can breathe new life into this place without sacrificing our identity. The crowd began to stir, whispers turning into murmurs of unification. His heart swelled. As Jake looked out, however, he saw a split emerging among the townspeople. Susan, from the bakery, whispered to her husband about economic stability and feed for their children. A young couple murmured about how they longed for something new. Hope battled despair, familiar faces turning, questioning, fighting fears. Their unity was fragile, and Jake sensed it could shatter at any moment. Then, suddenly, the skies opened, and the rain poured down in sheets. The storm they had felt was now a reality, drumming against the roof of the town hall. The sound was deafening, it matched the tempest inside Jake. Let us step outside. He yelled, feeling a rush of energy. Let the storm wash away the doubts. They shuffled out into the rain, a reluctant procession at first. But soon laughter broke through the clouds of uncertainty. Children danced in the puddles, and adults joined in, their worries washed away in the sheer delight of togetherness. Yet through the laughter, Jake's heart raced. He worried that this joy was temporary, like the fleeting warmth of summer. In his gut, he knew the battle was far from over. And with every joyful face, the question loomed larger, could the bonds they forged in this storm withstand the tempests ahead? As the rain poured down in sheets, a realization took root within him: this was only the beginning of his fight. He surveyed the group around him, the determination mingling with laughter, and wondered, what would happen when the sun rose again? The downpour continued, but the rain seemed to be a celebration rather than a hindrance. As the initial hesitations washed away, an urgency fueled the joy among the townsfolk. Jake felt the adrenaline surge in his veins, hoping to bounce back their sense of community into something more solid, something they could build on. The laughter and splashes brought him back to childhood memories of running through these very streets. Days when carefree spirits bound him to his friends, where nothing else mattered except the joy of being together. As he watched the families play, he clutched his heart. Would this fleeting happiness guide them through the struggles ahead? Would it remind them of their shared history? Cynthia, a grandmother who had taken pictures of almost every event in Willow Creek, suddenly drew near. This reminds me of the summer fairs, she yelled, clutching her camera, trying to capture the magic of the moment. Let us not let the rain stop us. Come on. She started dancing in the puddles, her energy infectious. Jake couldn't help but smile. Yeah. Summer fairs. A voice called from a group of teenagers, spurring enthusiasm. Each cheerful shout echoed against the darkness looming above, and slowly but surely, others joined in. The rain dripped down their hair, but no one cared. Community united in the storm. Yet, a small knot of insecurity tightened in Jake's gut. The outsider's words replayed in his mind, hauntingly persuasive. We could be living in a whole different future. he mimicked under his breath. He furrowed his brow, glancing towards the group leaning away from the festivities. Was it their answer, really? To embrace change at the risk of losing their identity? Mabel, the quiet woman from the flower shop, stood with a solemn look. She had never been one for large gatherings, and her expression revealed deeper worries than the rain could wash away. "Jake," she called out, her voice cut through laughter. "We can't ignore the reality of what's coming. We can't be naive. What if we really could use that investment?" The laughter dimmed slightly, and Jake turned to her. "But Mabel, would you want to lose the very essence of our town just for a few shiny buildings? We were here together when we triumphed and when we cried. How can we gamble our past for a chance at new?" He fought for his words while grappling with the weight of his convictions. Around him, faces shifted between hope and doubt. As the rain fell, his heart ached. It was more than just saving a few buildings. They were safeguarding a way of life. Would they stand together, or would they be pulled apart by visions of wealth and progress? Just then, a promise of light peeked through the clouds, a golden hue emerging on the horizon. "Look!" someone shouted, pointing to the sky. A collective gasp filled the air, and for a moment, everything stilled. There it was, a full rainbow forming where the storm had wreaked havoc just moments before. "That's us!" Helen shouted. "Together we rise even after the hardest storms." The townsfolk erupted with renewed energy, and laughter flowed once more like a bubbly stream. Jake couldn't help but join in, but beneath the excitement, a flicker of doubt still danced. Would the town remain united in the real challenges they were about to face, or would they be divided by the whispers of change? As the rainbow brightened above, Jake embraced the rising tide of hope, but he knew a struggle lay ahead. They had fought through the storm today, but what would happen when the clouds returned? Was their new bond strong enough to weather the next storm? The echo of laughter filled the air, bouncing off the cobblestones like a long-lost melody, while children splashed in puddles with reckless abandon. The rainbow above painted a vibrant backdrop, a canvas of hope amidst the uncertainty. Yet for Jake, as the town reveled, his heart felt heavy. Beneath the joyous surface, questions churned inside him, like a storm brewing silently. What do we want for ourselves? The thought lingered, nagging like an unwelcome shadow. He leaned against a lamppost, watching family after family share their delight, but his mind kept wandering back to Mabel's words. They were standing at a crossroads, and they needed to choose a path. Suddenly, as if sensing his thoughts, Cynthia trotted over, her cheeks flushed from laughter. "Jake! You've gone quiet on us," she teased, handing him a camera. "Capture this moment. For all of us. We need to remember days like these." Jake looked at the camera, recalling countless snapshots Cynthia had taken of them over the years. For a brief moment, he felt a swell of nostalgia. Their memories were inscribed in those photos: birthdays, anniversaries, goodbyes, and everything in between. The laughter became a testament that they had lived, loved, and thrived together. He raised the camera and framed the crowd, capturing the essence of what their town stood for. But the snapshot couldn't tell the story of the doubt that rippled underneath. "Do you think they see it, Cynthia?" he asked, lowering the camera, his voice barely audible over the cheer. "Do you think they understand what's at stake?" Cynthia's laughter faded, replaced by a thoughtful expression. "Sometimes, it takes a storm to see the beauty that follows, Jake." But, she hesitated. What if that beauty comes with a price? Before he could respond, a loud crash of thunder rumbled in the distance, pulling their attention toward the dark clouds that still lingered at the edge of the rainbow. The joyfulness faltered for just a moment as faces grew taut, the laughter replaced by hushed whispers. "Everyone!" Jake shouted, raising his hands. "Let us not fall back into worry. Today is for us. We're here together, rain or shine." The crowd's energy lifted again, but Jake felt the undercurrents of anxiety coursing through him. He needed to be a leader, but leading meant confronting the very fears he had. Just as the townsfolk resumed their laughter and splashing, a figure emerged from afar. It was Paul, the businessman who had previously brought forth plans for a development. He strolled through the crowd, his eyes scanning the festivities, searching for something, perhaps an opportunity or a weakness. Jake's heart sank. This was it. The moment they would be faced with whether to ignore or confront the looming threat together. Paul approached, his grin wide yet lacking warmth. "Looks like you're having a party, Jake." He called out, but the invitation in his voice felt forced, as if he couldn't bear to hear the truth under their joy. "Paul," Jake said firmly, stepping forward. "What do you really want from us?" The laughter faded again, and the tension escalated. The townsfolk, still caught up in their celebration, began to notice the interaction, drawn between two forces, joy and uncertainty. Murmurs spiraled as everyone shifted their focus to the confrontation brewing. "Just a friendly visit," Paul replied with a disarming smile. "I see a lot of potential here, and I want in." Jake's pulse quickened. This man could turn their town upside down. "And what if we don't want that?" he challenged, the question hanging heavy in the air. The clash of visions worked as a potent reminder. As the rainbow arched over them, it became more than a sign of hope. It signaled transformation. Would they stand together against the tide of change, or would they unravel under the weight of doubt? The crowd stirred, eyes darting between Jake and Paul, hope fighting against uncertainty. But would they find a way to unite? Would they choose to protect their history as they faced an uncertain future? As the storm clouds loomed closer, Jake knew the truth would soon emerge. His heart raced for what lay ahead. Would they welcome Paul with open arms or stand their ground? The answers were just over the horizon, and the next chapter was about to unfold. Jake's heart pounded as he locked eyes with Paul. The businessman's smile never quite reached his eyes. Behind that facade lay intentions Jake sensed were far from friendly. The air shimmered with tension, a mixture of excitement and fear electrifying the atmosphere. Cynthia took a step closer to Jake, her brow furrowed, sensing the shift. "What do we do, Jake?" she whispered urgently, her voice barely piercing through the crowd's murmur. The once vibrant laughter had faded, replaced by a heavy silence, as if the townsfolk collectively held their breath, waiting for the next move. Jake could see uncertainty etched on the faces around him. Families, children still splashing beside them, looked to him for guidance. He felt the weight of their hopes, their fears, and the reality of the choices they had to make pressing upon him like a storm that threatened to break. "Listen, everyone." Jake raised his voice, deciding to harness the power of that potential divide. "We all know what this town means to us. It's our home, filled with our memories. We've fought hard to keep it safe and friendly, to how we want it to be." His words fueled a small flicker of resolve among the crowd. They began to nod, leaning in closer. Paul, still beaming, shrugged nonchalantly. "The world is changing, Jake. You could grow with it instead of cling to what's fading. Progress can bring opportunities." "Opportunities for who?" Jake shot back, his frustration boiling over. The concern in his chest morphed into fierce passion. "You only see numbers and profits. We see families, histories, lives." As Jake glanced around him, he noted the flickers of understanding blooming on some faces. A few of the older residents, who had lived through the ups and downs of the town's history, began to murmur and exchange glances. Perhaps they were remembering past struggles, battles fought to keep their legacy alive. Cynthia stepped forward, emboldened. "We are not against all change, Paul. We welcome growth that honors who we are, the community, the stories, the roots. But not at the cost of tearing it apart." The crowd began to pulse with energy, voices rising. "Yeah. We love our town." Someone shouted. Another added, "Let us keep it ours." Jake felt a wave of relief roll through him. Unity was taking shape. Each person who spoke was another thread weaving them tighter together. But Paul didn't back down. Instead, he straightened his posture, his eyes narrowing as the tension thickened. "So, you all want to fight this? To hold on to a dream that's crashing? Fine. But dreams die. You'll regret not adapting when you're left behind. His words struck like a match, igniting doubts in several hearts within the crowd. Visions of their children struggling, opportunities slipping through their fingers, echoed in the air. Jake could feel the shifting ground beneath him. Don't let him scare us, he urged, his voice pleading desperately for resolve. We have strength together. We stand for each other, for our town. We need to ask ourselves, what kind of future do we want? As he spoke, a nervous hush swept across the crowd. The future loomed like the storm clouds overhead, and while hope flickered, uncertainty threatened to snuff it out entirely. Are we willing to let go of what we cherish? Or will we fight for it? In that moment, Jake couldn't help but feel the weight of history, and a spark of courage ignited within. The crowd held their breath, caught between rising hope and encroaching fear. Would they rally together against the businessman's threats? As the first drops of rain began to fall, the people looked at each other, uncertainty mingling with possibility. It was time to decide what they truly wanted for their future and if they had the courage to fight for it. The next step awaited them, and Jake felt the storm, the real one, drawing nearer. Would it wash away their hopes or cleanse the path toward a brighter tomorrow? The rain began as a light drizzle, tapping peacefully on the pavement. But soon, it grew heavier, mirroring the tension in Jake's chest. He sensed the crowd's uncertainty, their breaths barely breaking the silence as the droplets fell like tiny hammer beats against their resolve. Cynthia squeezed his hand, grounding him. Jake, look. She pointed to an older woman, Mrs. Hargrove, one of the town's matriarchs. The woman had stepped forward, her weathered hands raised. The crowd began to part around her, making way for her presence. I've lived here for over 70 years, Mrs. Hargrove's voice trembled, steady despite the downpour. My husband and I fought to build this place. It's where we raised our kids, where our roots run deep. Every eye turned to her, hope mingling with solidarity. Jake could see memories flooding into their minds: birthday parties in the park, summer fairs, and the town's annual Christmas tree lighting. They want us nervous, divided. They want us to let go of our history in exchange for shiny promises. Mrs. Hargrove continued, her voice growing stronger with each word. We have to show them that we won't back down. Not now. Not ever. As she spoke, murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Jake felt a rush of adrenaline. The connection between them tightened like a lifeline. But what can we do? Someone in the back shouted. They have money. They have power. Jake took a deep breath, he needed to channel the energy building in the air. We have each other. We won't be waged against our neighbors. We'll stand together, he declared. Let us organize a meeting. We can gather stories, build a plan, create a strategy. They don't know who they're up against if they think they can just buy us out. The crowd erupted. Yes. Together. They shouted, voices rising in volume, thumping in time with the rain. But Paul wasn't shrinking back. He moved closer, his suit slick with rain, an intimidating shadow against the vibrant spirit of the crowd. You're all deluding yourselves, he taunted. This isn't a fairy tale, this is a business. And in business, survival of the fittest is the rule. His words hung in the air like thick fog, wrapping around every whisper of hope. Jake looked at Cynthia, her eyes wide with concern. He couldn't let fear seep in again. Paul, Jake said, his voice cutting through the noise. You underestimate the strength of this community. We thrive together. We protect what matters. It's not just a business to us, it's our lifeblood. A chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and we're bonded. The town erupted again, chanting, bound. Bonded. And then the rain intensified, pounding against rooftops as if the sky itself was urging them on. Jake's heart raced, hope surged within him, boosting their urgency. The storm could wash away their fears, their doubts, leaving behind a clean slate. In that moment, a powerful idea struck. He could reach out to neighboring towns, gather alliances and support, show them the power of unity. Let us invite the other communities. Together, we'll show Paul that we're not alone in this fight. The crowd began to cheer even louder, and Jake's spirit soared. But in the back of his mind, the shadows loomed. The struggle was far from over, and Paul's threat echoed ominously in his thoughts. Suddenly, from the corners of the gathering, a whisper traveled, reaching Jake's ears, a name he hadn't expected to be in the mix. There's someone in the city, someone who has been watching, someone who might just back us up. What? Cynthia leaned closer, the uncertainty flickering in her eyes, mirroring Jake's own growing curiosity. Who? He pressed, heart racing once again at the thought of unexpected allies. The crowd hushed, waiting for the answer that could change everything. The voice that emerged from the crowd was soft but urgent, cutting through the rain's relentless drumming. A young man named Leo, his face still marked with the traces of teenage awkwardness, stepped forward, his eyes wide with the weight of what he was about to say. I heard about a community organizer, he stammered, glancing nervously at the sea of faces surrounding him. Her name is Clara. She's fierce and passionate. She's been helping small towns like ours stand up against big corporations. I didn't think she'd come here, but a wave of curiosity swept through the crowd, a flicker of hope igniting in Jake's chest. Clara sounded like exactly who they needed. What do you know about her? Jake called out, leaning closer, straining to catch Leo's words above the rising wind. She's been working with different groups in the city, helping them fight back. She believes every community deserves to create its own future like we do. Leo's voice was gaining strength, bolstered by the crowd's growing energy. If we could just reach out to her, then let us do it. Jake shouted, feeling the momentum shift. We need to track her down. We can't let our fight end with just words. We need her expertise. Cynthia's eyes sparkled with renewed determination. I can help. I've seen her on social media. She's been doing great things. I'll try reaching out. The idea of a potential ally sent a surge of excitement through Jake, spurring the crowd's voices into a crescendo of agreement. They began discussing ways to find Clara, pulling out phones and sharing their ideas, their hope shimmering in the rain-soaked air. But lurking behind their enthusiasm was an undercurrent of fear. Jake caught Paul watching them, arms crossed and a smirk playing at his lips, as if he were savoring the chaos of their uncertainty. Just remember, Paul called out, a sarcastic edge to his tone, she might have her own agenda. Don't be surprised if she's only in it for herself. But we need to take the chance. Jake shot back, unable to let Paul's words derail the hope building around him. We have to trust she believes in community, just like we do. What do we have to lose? And with that, a wave of silent agreement passed through the group. Unity was key. They needed to reach out to Clara and see if she could help ignite the spark that fired their resistance. Jake felt alive with purpose, adrenaline coursing through his veins. As they began formulating strategies, the rain seemed to lighten just a bit, as if the universe itself was listening and approving their collective resolve. Murmurs grew loud again, laughter cutting through the remaining tension. Then the crowd began to disperse, fingers moved swiftly on their phones, each person trying to seek out Clara's contact in different networks. Cynthia leaned closer, her voice low and serious. What if it doesn't work out? What if she can't help us? Jake paused, the sudden weight of her words hanging in the air. What if? This was their last shot, no safety net, no backup. They were all in. But that thought only solidified his resolve, making him even more determined. Then we'll find someone else. There are others out there, waiting to fight with us. We're not alone in this. As the crowd gathered their belongings and began to trickle away, the last words Jake spoke hung heavily in the air. But we have to believe, really believe. That night, as the rain finally began to stop, the weight of uncertainty faded just slightly, but doubt still simmered in Jake's heart. What if clarity would only lead to darkness? He looked over at Cynthia, her face illuminated by the soft glow of her phone screen, and felt an overwhelming urge to protect this shared dream. They had taken the first step, but what lay ahead? And as the stars timidly began to peek through the dissipating clouds, one question loomed larger than the others. What would happen when they finally reached out to Clara? Would she join their fight, or would she shatter their hopes into pieces? The sun peeked over the horizon the next day, casting soft rays that barely made their way through the gray remnants of last night's storm. Jake stood at his kitchen window, staring out at the wet sidewalks glistening, the world feeling both new and strange. He still couldn't shake the question that hung in the air: what if Clara didn't respond? What if this hope turned out to be a mirage? His phone buzzed, pulling him back. It was a message from Cynthia. "I found her contact. We need to come up with a plan. Can we meet at the cafe at noon?" A flicker of excitement kindled in Jake's chest. Just the thought of seeing everyone again, of discussing their future with Clara, made his heart race. He quickly typed back, thumbs flying over the screen. "Absolutely. I'm in." The cafe was buzzing when he arrived. The smell of fresh coffee wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. Leo was already there, nervously running his fingers over the rim of a cup. Cynthia looked up as he approached, her eyes sparkling with determination. "Hey. Good to see you," she said, her voice bright against the background noise. "Did you hear back?" "Not yet," Jake said, trying to sound optimistic despite the knot in his stomach. "But we can brainstorm what we want to say when we do." As they talked, Jake felt his confidence build. They wrote down bullet points, urging each other to think big. The goal wasn't just to have Clara help them. It was about bringing change, about building a future where their voices mattered. The group was alive with ideas, laughter mingling with their apprehension. "Okay, what if Leo started," then hesitated, his voice quiet. "What if she gets back to us and she doesn't want to help? Or worse, she wants to use us for something?" Cynthia leaned forward. "We can't think like that. That's exactly what Paul would want us to feel. Everyone is worth believing in until they prove otherwise. Our community deserves that chance, right?" Her words were like a bomb. Jake nodded, feeling the collective energy shift. "You're right. Let us be ready for whatever comes. Hope only works if we're open to it." Just as they were finishing their ideas, a new message popped up on Cynthia's phone. Her eyes widened as she read, excitement bubbling over. "Oh my God, you guys! It's Clara. She's willing to meet us." Jake's heart soared, but a quick worry tempered it. They had a chance now, they needed to make it count. "What do we tell her?" Leo asked, his eyes darting back and forth between the two. "What if we say the wrong thing?" "Then we'll be honest," Jake replied, his voice steady. "We tell her our story, why we're doing this. She's a community organizer, she'll get it." They all nodded, driven by the fiery hope igniting within them. In the days that followed, as they prepared for the meeting, nothing felt the same. They plotted and practiced, shaping their message. But Jake also started noticing small wonders around him, the way the sunlight danced through the trees, how the wind seemed to carry whispers of encouragement. But beneath that beauty lay an undercurrent of fear. As they neared the meeting date, Jake couldn't shake the doubts creeping back in. What if Clara's fierce reputation didn't match their expectations? On the morning of the meeting, his stomach twisted with uncertainty. The cafe buzzed with people, and the air felt heavier. He glanced at Cynthia, who was nervously adjusting her hair. "Have we prepared enough?" she asked, biting her lip. Jake took a deep breath, forcing calm into his voice. "Whatever happens, we fight together, right? That's what we're here for." As they settled into a booth, the minutes ticked by slowly, hope and anxiety twisted tightly within him. But deep down, he felt something else stirring, a flicker of resilience. And then she walked in. Clara's presence was magnetic, her confident stride cutting through the noise like a beacon. Jake felt his heart race, and for a moment, hope and hype collided. Could she be the catalyst for their change? Jake's mind raced as he watched Clara approach. What if she had the power to transform everything? The moment of truth had finally arrived. Would she inspire them to take their fight to the next level, or would she leave their dreams in disarray? The stakes were high, and all eyes focused on the unfolding story. Clara's eyes scanned the cafe until they locked onto Jake, Cynthia, and Leo. There was no denying the aura she embodied, it filled the room with a palpable shift. Jake could feel his breath quicken. He tried to calm his racing heart by reminding himself why they were here. "Hey there. Am I late?" Clara's voice rang out, confident and warm. She slipped into the booth across from them, her energy immediately diffusing some of their tension. "No, not at all," Cynthia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Thank you for meeting with us." Jake nodded, his mind swirling with everything they had rehearsed. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing in on them, the hope hanging thick in the air. "We really appreciate you taking the time," he started, but the nerves wove through his words like threads in a frayed tapestry. Clara leaned forward, her attention fully on them. "So, tell me why you reached out. What's on your minds?" Jake glanced at Leo and Cynthia before speaking. "We've seen changes that need to happen in our community. We're tired of feeling ignored, tired of our voices being drowned out. We believe you can help us bring them back." Clara listened intently, nodding slowly. With each word they spoke, Jake felt a spark rekindling in him, belief fueled by the possibility of genuine connection. They shared their stories about feeling overlooked, about the collective dreams for their neighborhood, the desire to be listened to and to make a difference. Clara's presence seemed to pull out the stories hidden in their hearts, rich with emotion. As they spoke, Jake noticed how Clara shifted from the polished activist to a relatable figure. She chimed in with her own experiences, the times she had been dismissed, the encounters that shaped her into the advocate she was today. It was refreshing, she didn't just hear them, she understood them. "That's why I do this," Clara said, her voice steady yet filled with passion. "We can't rely just on the system. Change comes from movements and people like you." Jake felt a rush of encouragement at her words, igniting a fire in him. "But how do we start?" "It feels so overwhelming," he admitted, vulnerability spilling from his lips. "Every revolution starts small. We need to gather voices, hear from more people, and then amplify them." Clara's gaze swept across all of them. "Are you prepared for work? This won't be easy." "Yes. We're ready." Leo jumped in, enthusiasm dancing in his voice. "Then let us create a plan," she said, her smile infectious. As they spent the next hour discussing practical steps, a blueprint began to take shape. Each idea was brought to life with passion and energy, sparking inspiration. For the first time in a long while, hope flowed through them like a current. But a lingering doubt bubbled beneath the surface for Jake. What if they couldn't rally the community as Clara envisioned? What if they fell flat? The thought echoed in his mind, but the fire ignited during this meeting began to drown out his fears. Clara concluded the meeting with a sense of urgency. "Reach out to your friends and family, share your vision. You each have a story to tell. That's the power that will spark change." As she prepared to leave, Jake felt a hesitation pull at him. "Wait. What's next for you? How can we reach you more easily?" With a sly grin, Clara said, "You keep me posted. When you're ready, I'll be there to support you every step of the way." The way her eyes seemed to shine with belief felt like a promise of binding agreement between people who wished to see change. As she walked away, Jake turned to Cynthia and Leo, their expressions reflecting a mixture of excitement and fear. What they had started felt monumental, but the challenge loomed large in front of them. "Now it's on us," Cynthia said, determination lighting her features. Jake could feel the weight of the responsibility settling in. This was just the beginning of their journey, and it would demand everything they had. "Are we going to be able to do this?" he wondered, uncertainty washing over him again. "Together, we can," Leo replied. But as the cafe hustle continued around them, Jake couldn't shake the question lingering in his mind: what if they weren't enough? What if their dreams slipped through their fingers before they even had a chance? With Clara's words echoing in his ears, he took a deep breath, holding on to the hope that flickered within him. This was their moment to step forward, but where would it lead? The days that followed the meeting with Clara felt like a whirlwind. Jake, Cynthia, and Leo poured every ounce of energy into gathering the community. They shared Clara's vision across town. Flyers appeared in shops, social media buzzed with excitement, and meetings were set every night to bring people together. Storage rooms turned into planning spaces filled with blueprints and stories, laughter and fear intertwined as they navigated the uncertain road ahead. Willow Creek began to come alive again. They laughed over coffee stains and doodles, built an online presence, and spread their message: our history, our worth. The community was abuzz with conversation, and a sense of purpose that had long been dormant began to bloom like spring flowers breaking through the frost. But through it all, Jake felt a storm brewing in his chest. The weight of the challenges ahead pressed hard against him. There was a nagging voice whispering doubts: what if their fuel fell short? What if their strength wasn't enough to break the grip of the outsider who still loomed like a dark shadow over their fate? On the eve of their first major community gathering, Jake found himself at the edge of the park. The setting sun cast a warm hue across the grass, but his heart felt heavy. The familiar sights that had been filled with laughter now seemed to amplify his worries. He kicked at the dirt, stirring memories of childhood simplicity right before him, running through the park as a kid, friends laughing, and carefree days stretching on. "Hey!" Cynthia's voice broke through his thoughts. "You ready for tomorrow?" He turned to face her, forcing a smile. "Yeah, but it feels so big. What if we can't hold it together?" Cynthia stepped closer, determination radiating from her. "We've already come so far, Jake. This is what we've worked for." Her eyes sparkled with that belief he needed to hear. "It's about showing up, and I know we can count on each other. Together, we can challenge anything." Her words sunk in deep, fueling his determination. It struck him this was about more than just saving buildings. This was about their people, their stories, and building a future sculpted from kindness and unity. As the sun set, it painted the sky with blazing colors: fiery oranges and deep purples trailing off like strokes of hope. Jake felt the bond of their community wrap around him. That evening, he picked up his phone and sent a message to Clara, sharing their preparations and excitement. He hoped she would join them tomorrow, knowing her spirit could inspire even more unity. Finally, the day arrived. The park filled with townsfolk under a bright blue sky. Families came, friends, even those who had previously doubted the project, eyes alight with curiosity and hope. Jake stood at the podium, heart pounding as he looked out at the sea of familiar faces. His community wasn't just there to hear him, they were there together. The crowd swelled as he spoke. "Today is about more than plans or proposals. This is our history, our stories intertwined. We all have a voice." Cheers erupted, filled with unbridled enthusiasm, igniting a fire within his core. Paul was there too, lurking just off to the side, arms crossed but eyes widened in disbelief. Jake felt the invigorating challenge: their voices could drown out his darkness. Then it happened: the crowd caught the beautiful warmth in sharing. They passed the microphone around, each person telling stories of love, resilience, and memories made under the old oaks. Laughter rang out, hope coalescing into a tapestry woven from shared history. Jake saw the fence he had fixed for Jerry, remembered the elderly Thompson's smiles, and felt the fabric of their community envelop him. He was no longer just a carpenter, he felt each member lift him through their openness and honesty. Then Clara appeared, stepping into the circle, vibrant and passionate as ever. She raised her arms, calling for quiet: "All these stories, this is what change looks like. It comes from empowerment, from seizing the narrative. I'm proud of your fight." A tide of encouragement surged through the crowd, and they erupted into thunderous applause. As cheers echoed, Jake's heart swelled with realization. They weren't just fighting for their town to remain, they were taking back their collective identity, their future. Weeks rolled on, the community planted their seeds in every corner of Willow Creek. They formed alliances with neighboring towns, held more gatherings, and supported each other's voices. The outsider grew anxious, rattled by the unity blossoming around him. Jake felt transformed. He wasn't just a carpenter anymore, he was a leader inspired by resilient kindness. The storm he had feared became the rain nourishing their growth. The day finally came when they stood before the planning committee, voices raised not in anger but in hope. And when the decision to keep Willow Creek intact was passed, the roar of joy was deafening, echoing through the hills where their laughter once lingered in youth. Every tear shed in happiness and relief felt like a victory. Standing there, embracing his friends and neighbors, Jake grasped a piece of the truth: the hidden power of kindness had transformed them. They had forged a new reality together, woven by acts of love and unwavering unity. Willow Creek stood tall, not just in the face of adversity, but in its thriving heart. The sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the park filled with festivities. The weight of uncertainty had washed away, replaced by the joyful sounds of community, laughter, and hope. And Jake felt the warmth for the first time in a long while, a bright future ahead that sparkled like the stars emerging through the softening dusk. Now, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. This is the moment to show your support for heartfelt narratives like this. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and keep these stories thriving. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this transformative ending, and remember, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this powerful journey. Don't wait not even one more second. Your support makes all the difference.